Well, welcome everyone to the second episode of Beyond Pink's podcast. Again, my name is Jessica Southwick, and I am Beyond Pink's executive director, and we're really happy to have you all tuning in again. Today, I am joined by Angela Barnes, the president and co-founder of Kvinna Care in Liberty Lake. So thank you for joining us, Angela.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, good. So just to give a brief overview of who you are and what you do, can you give us a brief history of Kvinna Care and kind of why you started it?
Yeah, I'd love to. We're coming up on our second anniversary in February, so we're not quite 2 years old, so we're just a little toddler still. But the history of what led me to Kvinna and starting the clinic was one of my best friends was diagnosed with a late-stage cancer diagnosis, She passed away. We're coming up on her 1 year anniversary of her passing, and so it's still emotional. But anyways, it was a real shock to all of us because she had been getting her yearly mammograms. She's a very health-conscious woman. She did all of the things that a woman knows to do for early detection. So when we found this late-stage cancer, it just kind of sent all of our friend group into a little bit of just a tizzy as a woman. You're like, how does that happen? How do you get a mammogram and have the cancer be missed year after year? Yeah. So that kind of sent me as a woman on my own quest for information and education, and came to find out that dense breast tissue, oftentimes, dense breast tissue, which is my friend Natalie had, often masks cancer findings in mammograms. And she was one of those unlucky women, one of the 45% of women who have dense breast tissue that kind of have an unknown risk factor for mammograms working for them effectively alone. And so that was kind of my first eye-opening experience of really this issue in women's health that I knew nothing about prior to Natalie's diagnosis. So as a woman, I think I just started to learn and educate myself on what do these women do. I was shocked to find out that almost 50% of women fall into this category. Yeah. That was a massive learning moment for me, and shocking. So it's like, okay, 50% of women go get their mammograms every year. 50% of women get their little letter in the mail, just like my friend Natalie, lay their head on their pillow with that negative result and really have a false sense of confidence. And that I could not rest with. Like my personality just is like, you'd have to know my personality to know that when I things like that, then I can't sleep. I'm like a dog with a bone. So then I just really started to dig in on my own of like, what are other screening options available to women who fall into this category? And in my research and on some of my chat groups that I got in on good old Facebook, a lot of learning happens on Facebook. I read about automated whole breast ultrasound as a screening method for women. And really it would benefit most women, but certainly women who fall into the category of having dense breast tissue and or breast augmentation. I feel like those two groups of women especially get a lot of false negatives. Mm-hmm. False negatives. Yeah. I always have to stop and think. And so I flew down. This was right at the beginning of the pandemic, if you can believe it. So I snuck on a plane to California when I shouldn't have been going anywhere to meet the founder of Sonosine, a radiologist who developed this technology. He has been a breast radiologist for over 40 years, is passionate about early detection, and had in his own practice over the years had seen so many women who had cancers that had been missed by their mammogram due to the density of their breast tissue. And he, as a practitioner, couldn't rest. And so developed the Sonosine automated whole breast ultrasound machine as an answer to that problem. And so I met with him, had my own screening done because I fall into that category myself, and really never looked back. From that moment forward, I was determined to get this technology into the inland Northwest. We did not have a machine at that time in the inland Northwest. California was the closest place a woman could have an automated whole breast ultrasound. And that there began my quest to hiring a staff, buying the machine, finding a space. I don't come from a medical background at all, so you can imagine the learning curve was steep. I mean, we own businesses in our family, my husband and I'm business minded, but medical is its own unique beast, to say the least. And so I just kind of threw myself into the deep end, learning what I could learn and building a very qualified staff. And so we opened our doors in February of 2021, smack dab in the middle of all the crazy. And I just never looked back. I kept thinking, why am I doing this in the middle
of a pandemic?
Like every possible hurdle and challenge you could have. But I couldn't stop thinking of Natalie. I couldn't stop thinking that, there could be one woman out there who could benefit from the screening, that we could save her life and get her an early diagnosis, a stage 1 diagnosis versus a stage 4 one where you have a shot at survival. And I just thought, my business partner was willing to put up the other half, and we pulled money out of our savings account, and we did. This was a bootstrapped venture, and but honestly, from day one, it's just been the most amazing journey, and I haven't had anything but confirmation that it was the right decision. We're still learning like crazy. Every month we learn something new, and but we listen. I think the reason the clinic is called Kvinna is it means woman in Swedish, and after talking to a lot of women about their experiences in the medical field and the kind of experience they have at clinics and wanting to have their questions answered, wanting to have a say in their care, wanting to be heard, wanting to be valued, we really built the clinic around the answers and the things that women were asking for, the kind of experience they would want in a clinic when they come in to get their breast screened. So that's the reason that we named it Kvinna. It's really, we want everything to be about a woman's experience when she comes in.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And what a time to start a business.
Yeah, I know. There's many days I'm like, I'm either really courageous or really stupid. And maybe you have to have a little bit of both. I don't know.
I feel like anytime you own a business, you have to be a little bit of both.
I think so. You have to be willing to take a risk and jump in when you don't feel fully prepared, and just trust that you'll figure it out along the way. And I've come to realize, though, it's not a one-man show, and I don't need to know everything. I just need to know or find the people who do. Yeah. And I think that has been kind of our sweet spot with Kvinna, is we've attracted staff and that really believe in the mission and why they're there, and they're amazing practitioners, and I couldn't be more proud of my team.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So for those who might not be familiar with the process, can you give a brief overview of kind of what the process is? What can someone expect when they come in? Kind of an appointment from start to finish.
To start to finish, sure. Well, you would, come in. It's always the big joke. We attempt to be a paperless office, and it's the big joke, like, for a paperless office, we still have a lot of paper, but we have you sign in on an iPad and give us your history and your breast health history, and it's a pretty seamless check-in process. We send the paperwork ahead of time so you can even have all that done prior to showing up. So you can just sit down and have a cup of tea or a glass of water before one of our sonographers comes out and gets you, and you go back, and you only have to get undressed from the waist up. So, that's always nice, but we don't have, the paper crinkly gowns. We have beautiful, beautiful cloth gowns and a heated bed, and we have lavender infused in the air, and it's a very bougie spa experience. To the best of our ability, we've tried to make it feel like you're being pampered, like you're genuinely doing something special for yourself, that it's not a medical experience. The screening itself takes about 20 minutes, give or take, depending on how much stuff you have going on in your breast tissue. Sometimes we have to take extra images if you've got cysts or just different things that we want to take extra look at. But the machine is automated. So if you've had other ultrasounds done, maybe if you've had prenatal ultrasounds, usually the sonographer is moving the transducer all around, kind of fishing for things. It's different with an automated machine because it's a robotic arm that really guides the sonographer's hand, and it's a very systematic approach to the acquisition of the images themselves. So if you can the best way I can describe it is mowing a lawn.
Okay.
So if you think about, like, if you mow a lawn, you do these rows that are just symmetrical rows that kind of just butt up to the next one. So the robotic arm acquires the images in that fashion with your breast tissue. So it starts on one far side of your breast and just takes row after row after row of images till it gets to the other side of your second breast. And we capture up 3,000 to 5,000 images. And then those images are stitched together into a movie that the radiologist reads. And so the movement is what allows for the very small lesions to be easily spotted by the radiologist. And then also the difference with the ultrasound is that it's the reverse. So your breast tissue is light and the cancer becomes dark. And so it becomes a much easier contrast to see with the dense breast tissue. And on our website, we have side-by-side images of a lesion seen on a mammogram versus that same lesion with an ultrasound in a woman with dense breast tissue, and how much easier you can spot that small lesion. And so the exam itself is not painful. There isn't compression or squishing. It's a very gentle screening. We always take extra images with the handheld ultrasound of your lymph nodes. Often, most cancers are found in that upper outer quadrant, And so we always take extra images of that area just to be sure we've seen all your lymph nodes and we can check all of that accurately. And then obviously, if you have implants, we check the integrity of your implants too to make sure that there aren't any ruptures or any other concerns that you might have with those. So yeah, it's a very thorough exam, but very gentle and quick, and yeah.
So for screening, do you usually recommend people come in if it's like a referral from another physician, or if they find a lump, or is it something that you would recommend they do kind of annually, just like you would your annual exam or a physical?
Yeah, we really suggest that women just add ultrasound to their yearly screening routine. We always say more information is better, and not all breast tissue is the same, as you know. So we are very determined and passionate about education, and every imaging modality really has their own strengths and weaknesses. And depending on your concerns or the type of breast tissue you have, knowing which modalities to use and to advocate for yourself. So combining modalities is really great. We have a lot of women who get their annual mammogram and then they come and get their ultrasound right after they get their mammogram, and they just combine, or their thermography done. And even MRIs, there's a time and a place for a breast MRI. And so I think not villainizing the different modalities, but being educated to know which one benefits you, and combining and advocating for yourself. We don't require a doctor's referral, mainly because of all the hoops women have to jump through to get the care that they need or to get insurance to pay for things. So we're pretty determined to keep the cash price as low as possible, so that the average woman, if she wants the screening done, she doesn't have to have a referral. She doesn't have to have insurance permission. We do, however, print off a super bill and all the forms necessary to submit for insurance reimbursement. And I would say a fair number of our women are able to get full to partial reimbursement for their screening, especially if we can document that they have dense breast tissue.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, but it's nice to be, it does create a little more paperwork for the women, but it also gives them the freedom to access the care that they want. And I'm very committed to that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what is the cost?
It's $375 for a bilateral screening. Our prices are going to go up, I believe, in January as per everything. Yeah. I think all the costs have gone up. So we're thinking through right now what that price increase is going to be. But everything has kind of gone up. And so we're going to do that. But if you can sneak in now and make your appointment and get in there while the $375 price is there. And then we also do thyroid screenings as well, because thyroid disease in women, as you know, has also just been off the charts as of late. And so we do a $50 discount if you bundle your thyroid and your breast ultrasound at the same time.
That's great. Yeah. If someone just wants a holistic view.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, what would you say was your biggest hurdle when starting and creating your business? Obviously, the pandemic probably created part of that.
I was like, that is a loaded question. We could be here. This might have to be a 2 episode. You know, I think it's just like anything, you don't know what you don't know until you're doing it. And so I feel like for the first year, we were just in constant learning mode. We were just, drinking out of a fire hose. I think probably my biggest hurdle was being a outsider to the medical community and just getting the word out. I think we have an uneducated consumer base on this issue. So you have a lot of women that have never even heard of dense breast tissue or even automated whole breast ultrasound, because this was the first machine in our area. Yeah. A lot of women are like, what is that? So you're really educating them on the problem. You're then having to explain the solution. And then even our own medical community in town, just our medical, our OB-GYNs, our family docs, a lot of them who would be the ones educating their female patients about their need for supplemental imaging didn't even know that this existed. Or, about 2 years ago, federal law was passed where women are now we're legally allowed to be notified of the density of our breast tissue. Prior to that, only our medical chart would hold that information, and we were not given that information on our results letter. And due to a really pretty courageous group of women in our country who have taken that legislative battle on, because women didn't know. Women would have dense breast tissue, would not even know that they were to probably be advocating for supplemental imaging. Yeah. And they wouldn't know until it was too late. Wow. And so those women have really been on the forefront of this women's issue for over a decade, trying to get legislation to catch up to the medical care that is really needed for women to get true early detection in this area. So that amazing group of women finally are getting some traction, and that federal law was passed 2 years ago. And all that is that now when you go get your mammogram, they are legally bound to notify you that you have dense breast tissue. It's in very little tiny fine print along the very bottom. So unless you're really looking for it, you might not see it, but at least it's there, and it says you have dense breast tissue, which means your mammogram might not be fully accurate and you need to talk to your doctor about supplemental imaging. Well, even women who did talk to their doctor, there wasn't great supplemental imaging to be recommended. And so I think has probably been my biggest hurdle, is just, building friendships like the one I'm building with you guys at Beyond Pink and other practitioners in town who really have an influence in women's health. And then just, like I said, educating the consumer base of the problem and the things they should be asking their doctors and the questions they should be asking, and that the solution does exist now in our community. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
And for a little introverted person like myself, that was a hurdle, because just, getting out there and doing all the things you have to do to make yourself known was a hurdle for me, for sure.
Absolutely. I understand that. Introverted myself. I understand that. What have you done to help increase awareness? And have you attended events? Do you hold any educational kind of talks or anything like that?
Yeah, and that was a challenge with COVID, because every single event that you would have attended didn't happen that year. Yeah. So all, hosting events and, all that came to a screeching halt. And so we had to kind of get scrappy and just do all the things that you can, the tools at our disposal, which were social media, podcasts like this, or just anytime I could get in front of a doctor or someone to talk to, but even doctors' offices were closed. Like you couldn't get in to meet doctors. So it was a very interesting guerrilla style marketing that we had to employ. But what we have found, and what has been, I guess, the most exciting thing is we have on our intake form, one of our questions is, how do you hear about us? Because, we want to hear and learn, how should we be using our time and energy and resources to reach the consumer base or the medical community. And I would say almost 80% of women find us through a friend referral. So that has been amazing. I think what's happening is the women who have heard about us come in, have an amazing experience, have been educated and get excited, and then want to tell all their friends. Yeah. And so, in the end, I think even though it's been maybe a slower growth doing it that way, because we didn't have the budget for radio ads and TV spots. I mean, that just wasn't in the budget. So we just had to use what we had, and we figured if we can get every single woman who walks through our door the most amazing experience they've ever had, then that'll be the best money we've ever spent. Yeah. And it's been, like I said, a slower growth doing it that way. But I say we have very loyal patients and walking billboards, and they're always so happy to recommend us to their friends and family.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And certainly, started at a time where all of that.
Oh, yeah. I know. I mean, I had hired, marketing people and PR people, and every single grand idea we had to cancel or revamp. And we're like, this is just getting super complicated. Yeah. But the world is starting to obviously open back up. And I attended a few things this year. Good. And that was fun. So yeah, we'll get there. We'll build up to all the fancy things. But for now, word of mouth has probably been just our biggest advocate in getting the word out.
I think, and I mean, we've been around for 13 years, and that's consistently probably our biggest, because you can advertise really well, but someone telling you their experience is going to be way more impactful than me sitting there and telling you how important this is.
Exactly.
So, well, it's good that you've gotten, a following. And
it's been good. It's I mean, can't believe we're coming up on 2 years. It just feels like pinch me, and the business has just grown. And I'm really excited about the future. Yeah, first year was nail biting and all the things, but I think we're kind of through the worst of the growing pains, and now we're kind of like settling in, and we're starting to dream and do strategic planning for the future. And all of that is really exciting when you can start getting your eyes off the day-to-day and you can cast a vision out into the future. So,
So what are maybe some of your future goals?
Well, we're always thinking about what are some other services we could provide women at our clinic. So there's always the idea of a service expansion. And then I think geographically, there isn't a lot of this throughout our nation. And so, I mean, everything we've done at Kvinna, my goal and my heart was to make it a simple business model that was easily replicatable. So every decision we make, every dollar we spend is always put through the filter of, is this sustainable and is it replicatable? If we make a complicated system or an expensive process, it's not going to be easy to replicate this clinic in other places. And so I think because we were forced to be scrappy, I think that served us well. And I think we're getting close to that place where I could really envision taking Kvinna into other markets and other cities. Amazing. We've got lots of women throughout the nation that reach out to us through social media that hear about us, and they're like, when can we get a machine like this in our city? And that is exciting. It's also heartbreaking knowing that, I mean, when I look at the nation's map and see how many women out there don't have access to this, it kind of keeps me up at night. But I also know, everything in its own time.
Yeah, you have to think.
And I have to prove the model, and I have to prove that it's sustainable. But I love business. I love empowering women through business. So if there would ever be a way that I could partner with other women in other cities to help them build clinics like the one we've built, or a version of Kvinna, that would be a win-win on multiple levels.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So if you could have people take away just one fact about you and your business, what would you want them to kind of know and understand about what it is you do?
Well, I think I'm kind of answering your question. I think one thing that, again, I think I've personally learned so much about breast cancer prevention, early detection. I mean, I've been on my own learning and education quest. And I think there's such a focus in our country on genetics and family history, is such an emphasis is put on that. And even in my own friend group, I've tried to encourage all my friends, of course, to go get your screening. And they're like, well, I don't have a family history of cancer. I get that a lot. And so they become a little complacent in getting their screenings done. And I was really surprised to hear that only 5 to 10% of the total risk factor for breast cancer is associated to genetics. And so that is a very small percentage when you look at the total of all the risk factors. And, most of the risk factors are things we actually can control. Genetics we can't control. But when you look at the total risk load, family history and genetics plays a pretty small percentage. And so things, I'm really encouraging. And even me in the last year and a half have been kind of on my own personal journey of lowering those risk factors for myself. Things like inflammation, hormone balance, environmental things I can control in my home, like whether I'm using fragrance or cleaning supplies, clean beauty, clean makeup. I mean, it can become very, very overwhelming because it starts to feel like what? I can't have alcohol. I can't have sugar. I can't have, none of the things, right?
No white bread, no grains.
I know. No perfumes, no candles. So for me personally, the way I have approached it is I've just decided each year I'm going to tackle one new area.
Yeah.
So we moved into a new home right before the pandemic, and I committed that I was going to change all of our cleaning supplies and really make an effort to have our home be as clean as possible and eliminate those carcinogens where I could and the fragrance where I could. And then last year I tackled my makeup and my hair products, and I went from being brunette because I had been dyeing my hair brown for 25 years and putting all those chemicals on my head. And I started doing the research of like how many chemicals are in that. And I'm like, all right, I need to just embrace the gray and go blonde. And so for me, I've just had to do it a little at a time because it does become very overwhelming. But it also could be, on one hand, overwhelming, but on the other hand, very empowering if you could think, because I think sometimes people get the word cancer is very scary. We all have watched a friend or a family member, most of us have at least. Yeah. And I think sometimes we think it's just this invisible thing. We don't ever know when it's going to hit. And so I think sometimes taking kind of control of our health and the things we can do to kind of offset those risk factors. This year I'm really working. I'm 50 years old, so I'm dealing with hormones. It's like very exciting. But I'm even that, like my estrogen was really high and I didn't know it until I went and got my hormones checked. And so I'm working on getting that dealt with so that, my high estrogen doesn't put me into a category where I'm setting myself up for cancer. So I think that really surprised me because I think me, along with a lot of my friends, just, you put so much focus on the genetic side that you don't really take into consideration how many small adjustments you could make in your life that actually would make a huge difference in your overall long-term health and specifically cancer prevention.
Yeah. That's interesting. I laugh because our first episode, I had Charlie Brewer.
Okay.
Our co-founder.
Yes.
And I asked her, one of the same questions was, if you could give anyone like one tip about breast health. And we talked about genetics because she was saying, 80% of cancers have no genetic connection.
Exactly.
And I think there is a definite like false sense of security or false sense of safety that people get if you say, well, no one in my family had cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, and I took it to the next level this year, and I don't know if this is TMI, and you can edit it out of the show if it is, but I was a woman who had breast implants. I had gotten breast implants after I was done having my babies, back in my early 30s, and I was like, I need a little zhuzh, and the more research I did on the impact of those breast implants on my health, there's over 20 known pretty serious carcinogens in breast implants, including arsenic and some other things that you're like, seriously? They don't tell you that what you're putting in your body. And I really had been battling a lot of really weird health issues, some chronic inflammation that no matter what I did, I could not get my inflammation down. And the more I researched and had some other friends explant, get their breast implants out, and really their health was so pretty radically restored to them that I went ahead and did that this year. In fact, just in October, which is why I couldn't actually go to your guys' big Beyond Pink event because I had my surgery the day before your event.
That would have been a little hard.
It would have been a little difficult to come, but it was a thing I could control. And I have no judgment for women who have breast implants. That was a decision I made too. So So I can't cast stones. And we, one of our big segments, a demographic of women who come in to our clinic are women with breast implants, because it is very hard to see cancers, small cancers, when you have implants with a mammogram. So, but I think for me personally, that was just one more step that I could take personally to reduce the load in my body of toxins that could potentially just wear down my immune system over time. And so I'm kind of about 2 months out from that surgery now, and I'm feeling really great. I've actually already felt a lot of the symptoms I was dealing with dissipate. And so I would be happy to be a resource to anyone. I know we can put my contact information in the show notes of this podcast, but you could reach out on our website, and my staff would get any emails to me, and I would be happy to answer any questions. If there's any woman listening who have breast implants and are considering getting them out, it took me about 2 years from the first nudging that I should do it to actually pulling the trigger and doing it. So it's a very emotional decision. It's, it's a big surgery. So it wasn't an easy decision for me to make. And so I'm very compassionate to any woman who might want more information or just is considering it. I would be more than happy to answer any of those questions.
Oh, that's really nice of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that. I know that's probably not super
I've just decided it was most awkward when I had to come clean with my children, who are now in their 20s. Like, mom is going to be sharing on social media that she has breast implants and she's getting them out. Like, my boys are like, seriously, mom.
Thanks, Mom.
I know. My kids and my husband have been very sweet through this whole process of starting Kvinna, because they're all like, we have never talked about boobs so much in our whole life. Like, my husband knows more about dense breast tissue than most women do. It's really cute.
They need to know, too.
They do.
It's very important.
They need to know.
That's awesome. Well, we might have covered it, but one of my questions was, what is a common misconception that you hear about breast cancer? Obviously, you were talking about genetics.
I think that honestly, would be the biggest. And then, like I said, I think just women being educated on what is all out there in our community to get early detection. I love that our city has now thermography and automated whole breast ultrasound and every other traditional modality. And so I do think one misconception is like, if I just go get my yearly mammogram, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately for me and my friend Natalie, that was just a rude awakening that is just not the case. You have to take your education into your own hands as a woman and research information. And thank God in our community, we really have some really amazing supplemental imaging options for women. Yeah.
It's one of our volunteers put it a really great way, and I steal it from her a lot, but she said, you wouldn't build a house with just one tool.
Right.
Like, you're not just going to build an entire house with a hammer. You need a saw, and you need nails, and you need, a nail gun and all of these things. And so she's like, all of these different technologies are just another tool in your tool belt, and you got to use them to keep yourself healthy. And so I use that a lot, but the way she put it, it really simplifies kind of that idea of everything works in conjunction. There's room for everything.
Yeah. And I have no qualms with women getting a mammogram, but I don't like that women are told, like you, to your point, here's a hammer. A hammer is all you need.
Yep.
And that just isn't true. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't mean a hammer isn't useful, but you might need some other tools to get the real early detection. Women deserve, and in our country, with the resources our country has and access to technology our country has, it is really ridiculous that there would be any woman who has to suffer a late stage cancer diagnosis if they have access to the appropriate screening and do it. I think that's the other thing. Women are notorious for putting their own health at the bottom of the list. And I'm not one to talk. I mean, I'm finally an empty nester. I'm 50 years old, and I'm finally doing things for my health that I probably should have done years ago. So I get it. I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm always encouraging our younger women, don't forego your breast screening. And that's been actually one very surprising thing since I opened Kvinna, how many younger women are coming to our clinic. I thought it would be a very small percentage of women. I was expecting most of them to be my age, 40s, 50s, 60s. Mm-hmm. We have a fair number of women in their 30s and even late 20s who want to start mapping their breast tissue early. They're very proactive with their health. They don't They just take the bull by the horn. They pick up the phone. They make their appointment. They don't want to wait. And breast cancers are being found earlier and earlier and earlier in women. We honestly, most of the cancers we have found in our clinic have been in women in their 30s or early 40s. So if you're not getting your first screening done until you're 40 or 45, you're almost like a good decade in to that 35 to 55, that 20-year period where most women are diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I'm always telling women with ultrasound, because there is no radiation, there is no downside to your body to starting screening early. Don't wait till you're 40 or 45. Start getting screened earlier, the better. Even with ultrasound, you can be pregnant and have a screening, and so it's a really wonderful tool for younger women who would never have access to a mammogram until they're of the age that insurance would allow you to have it. So I think that's exciting. It's been a surprising demographic that I never would have thought. But it's encouraging to me because it shows that the younger set are educating themselves and are advocating for themselves and are picking up the phone and prioritizing their health to the top of the list. And that's exciting for me.
Yeah, that is, because I would say my generation and older.
Yeah.
No. I'm lucky to get to my dentist appointment these days. So that's great to hear.
Yeah,
I hope that trend starts to change.
And that's what I thought. I'm like, wow, maybe this is a trend with that generation of women, which is really a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that really is. Do you have any breast health tips that might be easy to incorporate into day-to-day life that you would recommend? You kind of talked about cleaning products and beauty products. Are there specific products that you recommend?
There are some really, and I guess what's nice, it's kind of like the gluten-free trend. 10 years ago, if you had to be gluten-free, you were in trouble.
Yeah,
because there was nothing. There was like cardboard for crackers out there. And now it's just like you can have almost every yummy thing gluten-free and it tastes amazing. And I would say that I've really seen a trend. Companies are taking this more serious, and there's a niche in the market for companies developing clean beauty, clean makeup, clean, home cleaning supplies. And so there's a lot of, seriously, you could Google Beauty Counter's one, Ilia's one, Loma is a great, and Milkshake is another great hair product line. Fragrance is always the sticking point, though, because even the cleanest beauty lines often will still add fragrance, and that is a really big endocrine disruptor and can create a lot of imbalance in our body with our hormones and our thyroid. Yeah. But it's still way better than just the full-on stuff so I just always encourage women, just any change you can make toward cleaner beauty and home supplies, the better. Just even small adjustments go a long way. But it is wonderful to see more and more companies taking that serious. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier to find. I'm finding easier to find like clean cleaning products. For example, we have a 9-month-old at home, so that was one for me that it was always in the back of my mind. We need to change the products we use and go. But once he came along, I was like, well, then you're exposing him to all these chemicals too. So.
And it's nice to see as there is more demand in the marketplace and more companies are answering that demand, the price is coming down too. Because it used to be to buy organic food or to splurge on a clean beauty line versus, just your basic drugstore line or department store line. You had to pay, 40% more. And I don't really feel like they're becoming more competitive even in their price. So really the average person can start making those adjustments and hopefully not have to make a big adjustment in your budget.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We've seen that, especially with cleaning supplies. It's really not a difference. And you can feel a little better about it.
Yeah, especially with children. I'm like, I cringe. I did all the bad things with my children, like Downy with all the things. I'm like, well, their towels smelled amazing, but I was wrapping them in toxins, but that's all right.
They're okay. Now you know better, do better. Yeah. I just think he puts everything in his mouth. So
I know.
You gotta think about what that's been cleaned
Exactly. Yeah, that would be, as a woman, and I'm a woman who loves all the things, I love the candles and I love all the beauty products. So, it's been something as a woman who loves all that stuff. It's just, like I said, it's just been a process for me too, to do my own research and make the little adjustments and substitutions where I can and kind of commit to making one adjustment a year, even if that's, for me, I had to kind of do it that way. Otherwise, it just felt like you were taking everything away.
Oh, and it's so overwhelming.
It can be very overwhelming.
You're surrounded by it.
Exactly.
So
yep. But that's my encouragement, because I think the environmental factors play a far bigger role in our health as women, both with our hormones and cancer prevention, than we really want to admit.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Yeah.
And it's something you don't think about. If you've done something the same way for so long, you just don't think to change it.
Yeah, and sugar's a big one. I always am beating the drum of sugar. Sugar is like putting poison in your body. It's like the playground for cancer.
Yeah.
And so fortunately for me, I don't have too bad of a sweet tooth. I'm more of like a potato chip kind of gal, But I've tried to make substitutions to monk fruit and just some things that don't spike our insulin as much and create all of that wonderful place for cancer to grow and thrive in our bodies. So even little things like that, our diet, like just committing to lowering your sugar intake or your alcohol intake by a certain amount, and just say, okay, for 2023, I'm going to cut it by half. And just some of those adjustments make a massive difference in our health.
Yeah, that's really.
Yeah.
Sugar's a tough one.
I know. It's no fun to talk about cutting sugar and alcohol out of our diet right at the holidays, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say it.
Wouldn't be a good representation, but that's a hard one for me, because I definitely love the chocolate.
I know.
It's a hard one. So where can people find you? Where is your office, and where can they find you, like on your website and social media?
Yeah, Kvinna is spelled Kvinna. It's a Swedish word, so it's spelled kind of funny. But our website is kvinnacare.com, and then our clinic is located in Liberty Lake, Washington. And so we kind of located there, I live there. So selfishly, I wanted a 5-minute commute to my office. But it's actually wonderfully located halfway between Spokane and the Coeur d'Alene Post Falls market. And we're right off the freeway. We're just like 2 minutes right off the exit. So we're easily accessed. And it is a beautiful clinic. If you come and see us, we'll take good care of you. It's my staff are so sweet, and you'll be well loved. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, my assistant came in for a screening, and
she did.
Had a very positive experience.
Oh, good.
So.
Well, that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't do things perfectly, but we really try.
Yeah. As much as you can enjoy something like
that. I know.
She had nothing but positive things.
Oh, well, that makes me happy. That makes my day. Good.
She was really happy with it. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you
for sharing all your knowledge and telling us about what you do. I feel like talking to someone like you, it's a lot of the same things that I talk about when people ask me questions. So it's nice to hear that there are other people in the community kind of sharing the same information.
Yeah. I think Kvinna and Beyond Pink, we're kindred.
Yes.
We're kindred sisters.
I
really appreciate this time getting to share a little bit of my story and what our clinic does and how we can serve the women in our precious little Spokane community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.